Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. We are the Real Shortbox Live. I'm Donald. Over here is Kevin. Down there is Chris. And in the corner is special guest Frank Rodriguez. Frank, thanks for joining.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Of course. I'm going to do some stuff in the background. We're going to be talking about something fun. Kevin's going to talk about it here in a moment. But while I do that, Kevin, go ahead and take it away.
All right. Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone, to the most stupendous, most heroic, and always the most righteous podcast in the world today, The Real Shortbox. First, let me introduce the president and CEO of Rumble Smooth Productions and the executive producer of the Real Shortbox live stream YouTube show. He is a man from the great state of Ohio. He's a man who's a #2 fan of Bruce Campbell. He is DC Comics for life. And if you have a problem with it, he might just pop you in the mouth. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up to the 2000 Mr. Beefcake of Kent State University. The original.
Thank you all. Thank you. I appreciate it very much. To the ladies that keep mailing me their undergarments, thank you. Anyway, moving on.
He always talks about how he needs new underwear.
Well played, sir. Well played.
Next, we're going to the Central Time Zone. A man who's originally from the great state of Michigan, but now is known as the High Sparrow of Texas. He is the man who makes sure that he teaches the future thespians of this world to make sure that they get into Hollywood or Broadway. Ladies and gentlemen, he is always lovable, always huggable. Professor Chris D. Turn.
Thank you. I'm thanking every single superhero behind me right now. Thank you. Not you. Thank you.
All right, fair enough. We've got a couple people in the chats here real quick. Hello to Ricky. Thank you for joining, sir. And hello to Enrique. Yes, we did get your undergarments, Enrique. Thank you for that. Yes.
Wow. And next, and last but not least, our special guest, who's returning for, I believe, the third time in the history of the Real Shortbox live stream.
Feels like more.
Man.
It seems like
feels
five.
like more. Well, whatever, 4, 5, 6 times. He is a man who's currently on the Eastern Time Zone in Miami, Florida. He was the 2005 Cubano of the Year. He's a man who is knowledgeable of many topics, of many subjects. He is the Honorable, the Great Frank Rodriguez.
All right. Very delightful.
And of course, I'm your humble podcaster, the Grand Master of the Jedi and Vulcan Arts, your Supreme Chancellor, Dr. Kevin. Tonight, whatever you are in the world, in these 24 beautiful time zones, we're going to have a fun discussion. We're going to talk about which company, which comic book company, which cinematic universe, whatever the case may be, which is better.
DC!
Or Marvel. Who is number one, Marvel or DC? We're going to have a very aggressive, violent debate. I think Frank and Donald might get into fisticuffs between 3,000 miles separation over this topic. Because, oh wow, look at that. He's already disrespecting Marvel. Look at that. You see that, Frank? You see that, Frank? He's calling you out.
Yes, I do see it. I don't appreciate it, and Marvel doesn't.
Well. I'm not scared.
What if the answer is like Dark Horse or something like that?
I see. I knew you were going to say that, Professor Turner. I knew you were going to say something like that.
Or like IDW
or Boom.
Let's talk about Dark Horse's enormous roster of characters.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
That is true. They are small, the original characters that they have, but they do have them. Surprisingly, like I was telling you, more than I think Boom and IDW has, because IDW and Boom both do a lot of like already licensed shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So does Dynamite too, though. So there's that also. There's a lot of companies out there that are smaller, and funny enough. Okay, Kevin, Mr. Quiet. What?
Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. You guys were talking. I didn't want to interrupt. But,
Well,
yes.
he forgot today on counting with Kevin.
Right? Yeah, he got really thrown off when he was wrong. It was 3 or 6 instead of 3, and he's like, "Oh, fucking
He's
failure!
like, I don't have enough.
Oh,
I don't have enough fingers to count. What's
God.
going on?
Damn, I hate my fucking
Do I need to
life."
take my socks off and count with my toes?
Next thing you know, we see
toes?
Kevin pull out this giant goddamn sword. He's like,
Yes.
right at the
Kevin,
desk. And we're like, "Oh shit! Don't make us call 911 again, Kevin, please."
I know. In
Please.
the comment section, we're gonna have a little fun in the comment section because you're gonna comment. You're gonna tell us who you think is Marvel or DC. You're gonna give us reasons why you think why either company is better.
Mhm.
We might even take up a vote. We might even take up a collection and decide who is better on the comment section. It may decide the fate of Donald and Frank's life.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's some
Yes.
serious
I
shit.
didn't realize it was that serious. But hey,
Yeah.
things happen in the comic books. Sometimes life imitates art.
That's true. It's very true. It's very true. Oh, hey, my mom and dad are here. Everybody say hi to my mom and dad.
Hey.
Hi, Mom and Dad.
Hi, Mom
Hello,
and Dad.
guys.
Hey,
Hello. Nice to see you all. Sort of, I guess. You see me anyway. You see me. Hey, party. So we have DC and we have Marvel, guys. Now, we could all really just kind of go off and say, I like Marvel because of this. I like DC because of that. But I think it'd be better if we broke it down per category.
Yeah, need parameters.
Yeah, I think it would be fair and make sense from a scientific standpoint. So let's be scientific with this. After all, only one of us is a wizard. I'll leave it up to the audience to figure out which one of us that is. But only one of us. Anyway, so we do this scientifically. So I feel like we should start off where they started off, which would be in the comic strips in the printed page. So let's compare via the
Each
comic book
Summer's Day.
world. Yes. It's not always Shakespeare, buddy. So let's compare the characters themselves, the creators of said characters, and the publisher, the company itself as a publishing unit. We'll take a look at all those from a scientific standpoint, and that'll be the first section, so to speak. So we'll try to get through this relatively quickly. I don't think it's going to take too long. So let's talk about the characters, like the characters that were created over the years and that are still continuing to be created and still continuing to be put on the silver screen and our small screen as well.
Let's start with DC.
Yeah, we could start with DC since DC started first. That makes sense to me.
Yeah, 1935.
Mm-hmm. Just a bit ago.
Just a bit ago. So let's start with the very first popular, well-known superhero, the man from Action Comics, the Man of Tomorrow, the man who could leap tall buildings in a single bomb, Superman.
It's true. Now, of course, there are other characters out there that were created right around the same time. But technically, everybody credits Superman for being the first technical superhero, based on the publishing date, I believe, and the fact of the popularity of the character. So Superman it's a big one. It's a big character to pull out of your hat. So I'm going to pull up just a picture of Superman we'll have on the screen there. Everybody can see who we're talking about in case everybody went stupid and forgot what that is.
Is he the guy with the weird-looking S on his chest?
Yes, he is the guy with the weird-looking S on his chest. So Superman, discuss.
Well, let's see here, Frank. As we know, Superman comes from another planet called Krypton. He's powered by the yellow sun. He obviously landed in the right place, I suppose. He landed in the great United States of America in a cornfield in Kansas at a place called Smallville. He was raised by Ma and Papa Kent to be a good, righteous man with conviction, with good morals, to fight the truth, justice in the American way. Now, how can you compare against that?
How can I compare what a Marvel superhero?
Exactly. I mean, I could kind of think of one, but
one of the few that I think could go against him might be the Silver Surfer.
Oh, wow. Well,
he's got the power cosmic. He's got that awesome board. I'm pretty sure he can fly faster than Superman through space. He's capable of, creating things. What I understand, similar to Green Lantern. Silver Surfer would be difficult for Superman to take down.
Wow. You know, as can't believe you actually pulled a Marvel hero that's one of my personal favorites, the Silver Surfer. Very nice.
Oh, jeez. You know, Frank, we'll let you back on the show. You don't have to like be all kiss ass to Kevin about his character, the Silver Surfer, which is just some naked silver dude on a board.
A modestly naked silver dude on a board.
Chris, are you muted again? Because you're clapping really excitedly and we can't hear.
Yes, so I didn't want to do this and break everyone's ears with clapping by the microphone. So
that's fair.
I was doing a silent death clap.
Okay. Because
Chris, what are your thoughts on Silver Surfer?
I think he's just a naked surfer, and he's boring, and like.
Yep, snooze.
Well, to be fair, I've only seen what they've given us on film. I've never seen him in the comics, so.
Oh, here's him in the comics.
I've seen him in the cartoons too. He's pretty cool.
Look,
he's literally floating away like this in space.
Look, how dare you? He's a meditative, philosophical fellow, unlike Ted Gordon Theodore. He is an exciting spacefaring hero, a man who can save planets at a time, can liberate people, and heal people with his power cosmic.
Wait, planets? I don't know about that, Kevin.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I suppose I should bring up a picture of the Silver Surfer. I mean, if we have one.
It's like, did Galactus give Silver Surfer more power than Galactus himself had?
No.
We don't even have a picture of the Silver Surfer. That's right.
Kind of weird. He had all this power, and I'm thinking, if Galactus can do all that, why isn't Galactus more dominant?
No, he
is the devourer of worlds, but I mean, shouldn't he be going really fast on a surfboard or something?
Yeah.
Why a surfboard? Like, why does he need a surfboard? There's not even water.
He's on skates.
It's just a show. I think it was.
It's just a nice way for him to navigate the universe.
He skates around planets. La la la. Galactus races his dress up as he goes past.
Otherwise, he would just be on just like cruising through space without a surfboard.
It's true. Who's the harbinger of death in the DC comics? It's the Black Racer, isn't it?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, and I think he's on skis. So, as corny as the Silver Surfer is, it could always be worse.
And as you see, you called out DC on that one. Look at that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, come on. Hokey is as Hokey does. And that's a straight up Kirby creation right there. That's part of the fourth world.
To be honest, to play devil's advocate here as someone who didn't really read many of the comic books. Either way, aren't basically all the characters the same? Like Marvel created a character, and so DC created that character, and vice versa. Like, don't we have like variations of both?
Not every character, and this is where it gets interesting. The big guns, yes, they're going to try to emulate and make a copy, because if something's popular, that's what they want to do. Like, I was talking to Frank earlier, and Frank's like, you were mentioning, what was it? Which Robin was it? It was
Jason Todd.
Jason Todd. He was like, oh, Jason Todd, yeah. You know, like, some characters can stay dead. And I was like, well, no.
That's what I thought.
Right.
Stayed dead.
Yeah, so Jason Todd came back, and then, as I told you, at the same time, Marvel brought back Bucky Barnes. So two sidekicks, yeah, that were killed. They were like, one was like, oh no, we got to do it too. So suddenly you have these competing stories going against each other.
And it could be the smallest, most insignificant character too. It's just if one side does it, the other one has to keep up.
Right, but the thing is,
You know,
now
I mean,
when it comes
if
to
a hot dog vendor gets killed in DC, they got to bring back one at Marvel.
right, that's true. And as far as like the characters are concerned, though, I just want to paint a picture for you. Like a lot of these characters, Marvel and DC don't have exact copies of it. It's when you dive into the B, C, and D level characters, they don't always have.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
DC has a wider tapestry of rather well-known or semi-popular characters that are riding the bench firmly in the B, C, and D category, whereas Marvel seems to just have C's with D's. There's no, like, B, level characters there. It's like they have their A-listers, and even those, I think, struggle, like, for villains, and that's another big problem that we'll get into. But I feel like, for example, DC has Metamorpho, DC has Ragman, kind of very unique, very interesting characters. One's made up of elements and can create all kinds of different elements and has like these powers based upon that. And then Ragman is a guy that wears this tattered cloak, and each time he captures an evildoer, he absorbs them into his cloak and takes what strength they have and uses it as his own to help protect the innocent from more people like this guy. So, there are differences, but yeah, I get what you're saying. A lot of the big guns, exact copies.
Plastic Man came before Mr. Fantastic.
It's true.
Yeah, and then Elongated Man too. He was in DC.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Elongated Man.
A fight between Elongated Man and Plastic Man.
Yeah, Elongated Man was in a Flash comic. That was his first appearance. But yeah, I think Plastic Man even came before him too. There was, yeah. There's a lot of copies, and then they start copying themselves, like with Miss Marvel. They're like, let's make her stretchy. It's like, oh, cool. Yeah, because we don't have a stretchy dude named Mr. Fantastic. Yeah. So, you have that. Okay, so comic book wise, what do we think, everybody? What does everybody think? Kevin, Marvel, DC, what do you think?
As far as the Superman comparison?
As far as the generalization of the characters, like who has a richer tapestry of characters to pull from? Is it Marvel or is it DC?
Oh, man, that's a tough question. I'm going to give a slight edge. I'll give a slight edge to DC on this one. Very slight edge.
Okay. Frank, what do you think?
It's about even. I'm more familiar with Marvel only because I own more Marvel comic books than DC comic books. I was always partial to Marvel growing up. I would say Marvel has every bit the number of characters as DC, and Marvel does have quite a few bit characters who never got their own comic book because they just weren't, they weren't large enough to have any kind of major following. Like members of teams, like Tigra, for example,
Mm-hmm.
and just little bit characters like that. They had a whole bunch. Or if they did get a comic, it was just a mini series, and it never really became anything big.
I get you. We got some people in the chats that are throwing in their votes. Now, I just want to make sure that they are aware. They're both saying Marvel. That this is just from a comic book character standpoint, from a characterization, from like who has the richest tapestry of characters to pull from, Marvel or DC. So Kevin says DC, Frank says Marvel. Chris, where are you lying on this?
I have to go based on the villains, and so for me, I have to go based on who has the stronger, more memorable characters when it comes to villains.
Mm-hmm.
And so all the way, I have to go DC. I feel like DC has a much richer, just rogues gallery of villains. Like, I could maybe name 5 or 6 Marvel villains outside of the X-Men, and outside of the X-Men, and most of them are from movies. But I could probably name 20 DC villains. So for me, it's got to be DC.
Okay. Okay. And Chris, do you think that's based upon where you were raised, how you were raised, the demographic, the era that you grew up in? Do you think any of those had anything to do with that sentimentality towards DC?
I don't know. It's like, well, I only read one comic book growing up, which was Ninja Turtles.
Mm-hmm.
So everything I know is based on TV. It is common knowledge of DC. So basically, you hear more about these DC characters and these DC villains, like just out in the world, than you do these Marvel characters and these Marvel villains.
Yeah.
So just based on general knowledge of someone who didn't really read, the only superhero, like I read The Death of Superman for a couple years in high school, and other than that, it was Ninja Turtles for me. So it's I'm just basing on growing up and having friends who read comic books, what I heard and what always seemed more interesting based on that.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I think a lot of that has to do also with the media, and particularly back when we were younger, there was, I know this is going to age us a bit, but there was no cell phones. So when we were younger, we got our media from television. So it just so happens that DC was a little they were forethinking. They had the forethought to say, hey, if we catch the kids when they're young and show them DC's cool, maybe they'll grow up continuing to enjoy DC. So you had a lot of really solid animated universe type stories that were being told on television and on the screen even. And that's where we primarily saw our stuff and absorbed it was TV, or film. And DC, for the longest time, was dominant in those two categories. It wasn't until the dawn of Iron Man, the Marvel boon, so to speak, that we really saw Marvel's complexity and their ability to thrive in such a venue. So that was good to see. We got some comments here. Let me just test. Can everybody still hear me?
Yep.
Okay, Chris, you can still hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, can you say something? Somebody?
Hi.
Okay. All right, cool.
I like to hear myself talk.
Okay. No, it's just I was just testing something because there's a function on this chat that's making a noise, and I want to make sure that it's not coming across too loud for everybody. Let's see. We've got some comments here. Mega Mouse Spike, Ricky, and Ultraman Magnus they all three say Marvel. Enrique and Gio say DC. Hey, Maria. Ultraman says, I know more Spider-Man villains than I know DC villains. And my mom says, what? No cell phones? LOL. Yeah, Mom, no cell phones. But yeah. Spider-Man villains are a really good exception. Some might say the Spider-Man's villains are better than the Batman's villains. And that's tough. That's tough to say, but it's a lot of people believe this. And I think it's I think it has a lot to do with what you're partial to. I was raised and grew up in a DC kind of environment, and it sounds like Frank was more of a Marvel environment. So Marvel is going to be more to what he's in tune to, whereas DC is more what I'm in tune to. No matter how old we get, I think that's how that's going to work. So
the X-Men has some great villains too. As
far as you're not wrong. As far as the development of the characters, we're giving the edge. I'm throwing in my hat with DC as well. I think, like I was saying earlier, there's much more definable B, C, and D level heroes and villains in the DC universe than there are in Marvel. Meaning that DC has done a better job, I think, of showing them over and over and throwing them in small scenes and battles and throwing them in like guest starring or appearing or anything like that, of trying to keep a wide breadth of their characters relevant, no matter what the status. Whereas Marvel tends to, I think, oftentimes forget about certain characters and just concentrate on certain ones. And I know that's saying something because DC has literally 30 Batman titles out every month. But for as many as there are Batman, there's just as many X-Men, Spider-Man, even half as much of that in Avengers. So Star Wars, which is Marvel, there's a shit ton of those that come out every month. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, so we're saying DC seems to have the stronger characters, but but not by much. Now, when we're talking about these characters, we have to give a nod to the creators of these characters. Each era garnered new creators within that universe, but what were these creators known primarily for? Were they known for their breadth of work in Marvel or DC? And if it's one over the other, does that necessarily make that work for that company better than the work at the company that they worked less for?
Good
If
question.
that makes sense. So let's take a look. We're going to dive in here. I'm going to pull up just one of the creators that we're going to be spotlighting. We might as well start, alphabetically, so to speak. So let's go with none other than Mr. Alan Moore. Now, anybody know a little bit about Alan Moore? Can anybody speak of Alan Moore?
Well,
I have no idea who he is.
Oh,
You know what? If you
I'm
saw him in
leaving.
real life, Chris, you you would definitely love the beard he rocks. He rocks like an old monastery type beard.
yeah.
But he's a very quirky character, very passionate.
Worshipped a
man
snake
of-
god with his wife, who he
Yes.
had relations with another woman within their relationship, and his wife ended up leaving him for that lady.
Oh, I thought you were going to say she left him for a snake.
Well, some might say that's the same thing. I guess it depends on how bitter you are. So yes,
Well-
Alan Moore.
There's three things he's most famous for, I believe.
Uh-huh.
That would be his work on Swamp Thing in the 80s, where he really turned that character around. Watchmen, of course, is considered one of the greatest, and some people consider the greatest comic book story ever written.
Mhm,
And then, of course, Batman: The Killing Joke, and
mhm.
also B for That's the fourth thing. I forgot about that. B for Vendetta. Can't forget that. So
Yep.
a lot of
Oh,
classic.
and don't forget League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
That's right. League of
Sean
Extraordinary
Connery's infamous
Final
last film.
Final film. That's
Mhm.
right.
It's interesting. Kevin should mention Swamp Thing because in the 1990s series, the boy in the series gets kidnapped, and then at some point, everybody else in the show forgets about it. There's yeah, he's gone. Forget it.
Yep.
Leave Jesse alone. We're never gonna get it back.
Oh, Ultraman Magnus, by the way, it's not the wrestler with the sock. That is Mankind, I believe.
Yeah, Mankind.
At the
Mick
side.
Foley.
Yeah.
Mick Foley.
Different names.
Yeah.
Right.
Different names.
So not quite, but I see where you're going with that. So Alan Moore, Kevin, you just mentioned 4 seminal pieces, and I didn't hear one Marvel title out of the batch. So with
It's true.
a strong but firm resolution on this, I would say unequivocally, without a doubt, we all have to say DC takes the upper hand in this one. Is that correct?
Yep. That's just the thing. He's mainly wrote for
Because there's
DC
nothing
and some
else
independent stuff.
to compare him with
Yeah.
Marvel. Yeah, really.
Yeah, it's nothing there.
Okay. All right. So credit goes where credit's due. It's going to DC. Now, let's take a look at another character creator, and we're just going, alphabetically, I guess. So we're going to run into another big DC, I think, kind of a guy. Bill Finger.
Creator,
Newly
co-creator of Batman. Never got credit until-
newly coined, co-creator of Batman, Bill Finger. Isn't that something? You
Well
pass.
deserved. Bob Kane really just pushed him to the side and made sure that people forgot about him. That wasn't
Mhm.
right.
No, not right at all. But when you need the spotlight, sometimes you just do what you gotta do just to survive.
Right.
I mean, you've done that to me at pageants and shit. Remember that time we both entered that beauty pageant
I don't know what you're talking about.
and you made sure that I was pushed down so my knees were scabbed. So during the swimsuit competitions, I had scabbed knees and everybody made fun of me and I lost. And you ended up winning, if I recall.
And wasn't his special
Quite a fantasy.
skill chopsticks on the recorder?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, it sounds like you're very similar to that. I can continue on if you guys would like. But I don't know. Kevin's shaking his head. He doesn't even want to look me in the eyes right now. I don't know what I've done, Kevin. I'm so sorry.
Some good stuff.
No, but I'm nibbling on it. But seriously, Bill Finger, seminal work with Batman. Has he done anything else? Anything for Marvel?
No, not for Marvel that I'm aware of.
No, not really. Not that I'm aware of either. So another affirmation for DC.
So here's something interesting. I didn't know that the creators were allowed to write for both.
Yeah, the freelance.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, that's true. Sometimes, believe it or not, they would get locked into contractual agreements with companies. So, like Brian Michael Bendis, for example, signed a contract with Marvel. Jason Aaron signed a contract with Marvel. So they were locked in to write just for them. Jeff Johns, DC. So both companies try to do the same thing. But yeah, I mean, a lot of times you'll have your Bill Murrays, aka Alan Moores, that are kind of like, they just prefer one company or the other, and they don't necessarily have a contract with either one, but they will sign like, oh, I'll write this story, which will either be 6 or 12 issues, however long I write it, but I'm super popular. You want me for your company, so you're going to let me do what I want anyway. And that's usually the case with that kind of stuff. Although Alan Moore and Grant Morrison oftentimes claim to it be otherwise. But, that's a whole nother podcast for another time, to be honest. Hey, Janet. Thanks for joining.
Hello.
I just want to thank all of you also for giving us a watch, a listen. We're the Short Box Live, sponsored by Splatter Frog Brewing. Type in coupon code SHORTBOX on splatterfrog.com. and get 20% off your order. We are also sponsored by Half's Hot Sauce. And I believe we are getting some hot sauce in for not just a tasting, but also for a giveaway as well. That's going to be coming up in some future podcasts here. Most likely, I would say Shocktober. Sounds like a good time for hot sauce.
Oh, yeah.
But we'll be doing some of that, so stay tuned for that. In there, halfshotsauce.com. Type in the code Donald Hiccups, get 10% off your order as well. Lots of good product, both companies, so give them a try. So we were talking about these characters, and we're talking about contractually, being locked in and stuff like that. So let's get to the next creator now. I don't know if we're going to be able to go through all these, but we're just going to throw a few more out. Since we mentioned Bill Finger and Bob Kane, I don't need to pull up a picture of Bob Kane or anything. But let's look at here's one that for his big work on Savant 7, I believe, or Sovereign 7, I think it was, for DC Comics. We're talking Chris Claremont, everybody. He was DC for life. This guy did nothing successful at Marvel at all.
And that's what he's most famous for.
Right, Doom Patrol.
Well, I knew you would go there. Yeah, the team that, they were kind of created around the same time.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, the X-Men. That's what Chris Claremont is probably known. Actually, I think with Chris Claremont and John Byrne, he's one of the people to help bring the X-Men into the mainstream. So I think he'll go down as that person who really blew up those characters.
Yep.
The original 60s iteration, it was a so-so comic at the time, and it didn't do as well.
Nope.
It got canceled in the end of the 60s, but then in the mid-70s when it relaunched, and when Chris Claremont came in around 1976 to take over, it was just incredible. I think he worked on a book for about 13, 14 years, something like that. It was just ridiculous, the run he had throughout the 1980s. All those storylines from Days of Futures Past, all the storylines.
It's going to be funny, Kevin, because we're going to be getting into something here with Marvel, which I think is not necessarily always a positive. It could be seen as a negative, too. But Chris Claremont, obviously firm within Marvel's wheelhouse. Not much on the DC route. He's tried his hand at multiple things within DC, but not the best. We'll talk Denny O'Neil, Dennis Cowan, more of Dennis Cowan's work within DC. In his creation of characters within Milestone. Denny O'Neil, primarily with his work within DC also, particularly his run on The Question, is quite seminal.
And Green Lantern. Can't forget Green Lantern.
That's true.
In the 70s.
Ed Brubaker, a lot of Marvel Captain America, actually, a very big run on that, creating the Winter Soldier, a.k.a. Bucky Barnes. Jeff Johns being DC. George Perez. Now, here's one that I think cuts the line firmly down the middle. And I would say George Perez is both as much DC as he is Marvel when it comes to influence within the art form, so to speak. I think he did top notch with both of them, and I can't say that I think one that he's done for one is better than the other.
Look at my background, JLA Adventure Story. He drew it.
Yeah, he even drew that, which is both companies. They're DC, and Marvel. Real quick. Let me bring up another one. Jerry Conway. Jerry Conway did a lot for both companies also, if I recall. But primarily, I think he was partially responsible for the creation of the Punisher. So
Yes.
you probably... Frank, I'm going to say you're probably going to say Marvel on this one, and I'm going to have to agree with you. Kevin, your thoughts?
Yeah, I would probably go to Marvel. If I recall, I believe he also wrote the Death of Gwen Stacy and Death of Green Goblin, Norman Osborn storyline back in the 70s as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did quite a bit. So a lot from Marvel. So I would give him Marvel, and I think we've covered basically Gil Kane, Grant Morrison, Jack Kirby. I would say Jack Kirby more Marvel for sure.
Right.
Jerry Siegel, of course, DC. Jim Starlin, more Marvel, 100%. Jim Steranko, more Marvel. Jim Lee, definitely in the earlier part of his career, more Marvel, but in the later part of his career, more DC, particularly because he started working for DC. Jim Shooter, of course, Marvel. Joe Simon, Marvel. Joe Shuster, DC. So it's a nice mixed bag of all these creators. So we're going to say just kind of very down the middle as far as creators are concerned. But me thinking out loud here, I still would give the edge to Marvel myself, just based upon the breadth of writers and artists and just the amount of work that Lee and Kirby were churning out in that time.
Frank Miller has some seminal work in both companies as well. His Daredevil run with Marvel, and of course his Batman run with DC.
Yep, both creating a more darker, complex universe within each of those characters' worlds, which is quite fascinating to see. So how do you guys think so far in the chat there? What do you think? Do you think one is kind of teetering above the other? Do you think they're kind of dead even at this point? Let's hear your thoughts, guys, in the chats, if you want to just type in what you're thinking. And in the meantime, we've talked about the creation of the character. We've talked about the artist behind it. Let's quickly mention both publishers and see what we think there. Now, we have Marvel, which originally was... which publisher, Kevin?
Let's see. Before that, it was known as Atlas Comics, but before that, it was known as Timely Comics.
Mm-hmm. Timely Comics. Now, you had Timely, which morphed into Atlas, which morphed into Marvel. Atlas is looked upon very poorly in Marvel's lifeline because particularly the whole superhero idea was dead. And they were relying a lot on horror and on new, somewhat superheroes, but they're hosting stories about science fiction and war, and it was a very odd time around when Atlas took place. But some of
those titles did carry over into the Marvel age of the '60s. So Strange Tales.
Yeah.
Tales of Suspense, Journey into Mystery, they eventually would.
Some of those there was something that was successful behind it, yeah. And you're right, transitioned very successfully into Marvel when that, came to be. DC was originally Quality?
National Periodical Periodical Publications.
Okay, and then that eventually morphed into DC. So National Comics, DC Comics, I feel like DC for the longest time had absorbed more other companies than Marvel. They had acquired the rights to Wildstorm. They acquired the rights to what?
Charlton characters.
To Charleston characters, to Quality Fleetwood, I believe, characters, to just a whole host of other companies along the way that they kind of absorbed in.
They sued Fawcett to get a hold of, well, eventually would get the rights of Shazam or more
Right.
Captain Marvel.
Yeah, so they could gain the rights to that character, which is kind of crazy, because it's such a different, more, like, in so many different ways than Superman that character is. And the fact that they were successful in that lawsuit blows my mind, but whatever.
Hey, you grease some palms, you can get things done.
I guess whoever
It
has the
works.
most money, yeah, that's usually the way that works, so we should not be surprised. So as far as it within the publisher world, what do you guys think individually? Chris, what do you think, Marvel or DC as far as publishing? Chris, we can't hear you at all. You gotta unmute yourself.
It's fine. I'm just inner thinking here. I'm not sure how to answer this question because I really only know them as Marvel and DC, and I'm not sure when they started as Marvel and DC, so I can't say which one has more of a storied past.
That's fair.
I know, so for this one, I'm going to have to abstain.
Okay. Frank, what about yourself?
Well, I like Marvel better in terms of the publishing.
Okay.
Just thought they had better stories, or at least stories that I found more relatable.
Right, and that's something that Marvel prided themselves in, is the humanistic element of all of basically their creations.
Yeah, I mean, look at Peter Parker's tragic story right there. I mean, he started off with all these things going against him. You know, not only did he lose his parents, but he grows up and he's kind of out of place. He's this nerd that's, you know, his biggest goal in life was the science fair.
Right.
So of course he was getting picked on.
Yeah.
Whereas you take like characters in DC, if they were picked on, it wasn't for very long.
Right.
Before they the tables on people.
Relatable. The Marvel characters
Peter
are more
Parker
relatable.
had to kind of transform. And even as Spider-Man, he's still, you know, the way that he mulls over things and ruminates, it's like he's not sure of himself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
Because he's flawed, and you can see it.
Right, and that's something they build into their characters, all having flaws. Even the Avengers, when they came together, they bickered quite a bit. There was always an in-house argument, where the Justice League was usually like, let's go, team! And they would go as a unit, you know? That's why when anybody says Avengers versus Justice League, I'm going to answer Justice League every time, because the Avengers always fight each other. They're always arguing. Yeah. And I'm like, that's not DC. They're going to be like wrapping this shit up while, you know, like Thor is fighting with Captain America or some nonsense.
Yeah, and the Justice League of America, it kind of parallels the United Nations, you know?
Right.
It's like each person there is a representative from somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Either a
it's true.
different city or a different part of the world. I mean, they do work together, but they all have their own domain, you know? Once they
Sure.
leave the halls of justice, they go back to wherever they normally go
Right,
to.
where like Ant-Man is like, hey guys, I'm just going to kind of live here now. I'll be in the game room, and then, you know, like Hulk is like, games, Hulk, like, you leave, you know, that kind of shit. You see, yeah, I would imagine that would be that, where all the DC characters are like, well, gotta go back to my real job, which is my life. And the Marvel ones are like, I live here. I hate everything. Oh, my life's falling apart. Oh, I'm blind. And every woman I choose is just a goddamn mess. Just a mess. And they always rat me out. They tell everybody who I am because I always have to tell them because I'm a fool. You know, and then you get those types of characters from Marvel, which is also very fleshed out and very in detail, but not so much to the awesomeness of being repetitive, if that makes sense, within some storylines. But you'll have that.
See, when it comes to publishing, I guess it depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for like a diversity of different type of titles and different type of storylines, I'll probably give it to DC because you have the Vertigo line. Of course, you have Milestone. You have Jim Lee's Wildstorm.
Mm-hmm.
So you have certain things that you get a little taste of diverse character, a little more, not say diverse characters, but just diverse storylines and whatnot. And Marvel, getting back to what Frank said, it's about relatability. Characters you can relate to. You know, this guy's trying to pay his bill on time. This guy's having, a relationship problem. This gal's having this problem. Then you would give it to Marvel as far as like stuff you can relate to on a daily basis. So it just depends on what you're looking for.
Yeah, that makes sense. I will say this to kind of cap this off. At one point, Marvel went bankrupt. At another point, Marvel was unable to get their book published and had to partner with their competition, DC, in order to allow them to piggyback on their publishing because they were hurting that much. So I think if you look at all aspects and you include in the actual unit of publishing, I think DC's got the edge in the all-encompassing when you look at everything. And it's just what Kevin's saying along with that thought process shows me that there's more forethought within the actual publishing of the comic, or has been historically. Maybe not necessarily right now, per se, but historically, I would give the edge to DC on this. Does that seem fair, everybody?
Yeah, seems fair.
Okay. Let's see, we got some comments here. Ultraman Magnus says, my favorite DC comic is Batman and Robin All-Stars. That's a pretty good run. Morrison, if I recall. Enrique says, DC, although I would like Marvel to use their Malibu characters. Oh, Enrique, don't get me started on that, man. Don't get me started on that. I'll keep going.
By the way, check our interview with the Malibu creators, because we actually talked about this.
It is on the front page of our YouTube channel. You go to rumblespoon.com on YouTube, and it pops right up and starts auto-playing part 1. And then you can go to part 2. It's like a half hour in total, 35 minutes, somewhere around there. Janet says, I do like that the Marvel characters don't always get along. All the three-dimensional personalities in the characters are great. That's also Absolutely. A very good perspective, Janet. Yeah, I mean, while there is in-house fighting and stuff, that makes for a better story sometimes. Yeah. You don't want everybody to always get along all the time, or it's unrelatable again.
It's boring.
And then to Janet's point, the ultimate example of them not getting along in Marvel was the Marvel Civil War.
That's
Talk about
true.
division. I mean,
yeah,
you really shows up sides there.
Written by Mark Millar, who just knocked it out of the park. I mean, everybody loved it pretty much. It was a very good story, and so much so that Marvel based a third Captain America movie off of it, which is crazy.
Yep. Get a good movie too at that.
Yeah, a lot of fun. A very fun movie. So we've talked about the heroes, the villains a little bit. We've talked about from a whole as far as the publishing unit's concerned. So we've talked about the characters themselves, the creators of the characters, and the publishing behind it all. And it still sounds like a little bit more leaning DC, but let's move a little bit into another section, which I have a feeling is going to kind of even the playing field a little bit. Let's talk about the television and film world, including animation. So we talk about animation, we talk about television, live action, and then we talk about feature films. As far as we have DC and we have Marvel for this. Now, looking historically again, I would say the two most iconic television series would be the 1960s Batman and the 1970s Incredible Hulk. Now, historically speaking, is there one I'm missing here that I should be mentioning, or
70s Wonder Woman for sure?
Okay.
There was 1970s Spider-Man.
But I feel like when anybody thinks of these television juggernauts, they're going to think of Batman and they're going to think of the Incredible Hulk.
Yes, predominantly.
Let's see here. Enrique says, "Oh yeah, I did listen to that episode. I think I'll listen to it again." Oh, thanks, Enrique.
Wasn't there that super racist 1940s Batman TV show?
There was.
It was a serial. It was like a film series.
There was a serial.
Movie theater.
There was a Superman series too.
Yeah, in the 50s with George Reeves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Superman's continued in an animation kind of domination as well. Thanks, Pete. Pete says Wonder Woman. We agree there. Wonder Woman was a big part of the 70s also, when it came to that, probably rivaling The Incredible Hulk, I would say.
Yeah, Linda Carter.
It was pretty good. Great series.
Mm-hmm.
Wonder Woman. Those bracelets and that lasso.
So, Frank, you had a unique perspective on stating when it comes to Marvel and DC television, not animation, just live action, what you prefer. Can you talk a little bit about what you were saying earlier?
Yes, to me it's Marvel, and this is just me saying it. It's more watchable to me, and the reason I say that is because the Marvel characters, I feel, in the sci-fi fantasy genre are more balanced between the sci-fi and the fantasy, whereas DC, some of their powers are just so way out there that I couldn't imagine that being possible. Not that all the powers in Marvel are possible, it just, I don't know, it just seems closer to being able to happen for some reason.
Okay.
And I do like the Marvel streaming series. I like She-Hulk a lot.
Okay. As far as the Marvel series streaming instead of like the DC series that you could see, like for example, we could talk about the Swamp Thing series that had just began and ended, Doom Patrol, Titans. We could talk about Lucifer, Peacemaker, The Flash, Legends of Tomorrow. All of those.
The sleeper hit,
Stargirl, and then you're comparing this to.
I'll be honest with you, they've been on the air too long. They should have ended much sooner, because it gets to where when you start to see episodes that remind you of other episodes, and the reason being it's just been on the air so long.
Right, I can agree.
I can say the same thing outside of comic books, like that series Blue Bloods with Tom Selleck.
Yeah.
I'm seeing regurgitated themes. It's like this show probably should have gone off the air 5 seasons ago.
Mm-hmm.
It just there gets to where it's so predictable. You know how they're going to think. It's like, with all due respect, if you could have just wrapped up this show to make room for new series instead of keeping this going, and then just you branch off and make another series, and it's like, I can't possibly watch every episode of every one of these series, especially in the Arrowverse. I don't have the time.
Right.
I'm going to forget what I've seen because there's so much content.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to forget who's connected to who and how.
It's all about the syndication deal. It's all about the syndication deal, man. That's what it's all about. You got to make as many episodes as possible to get that sweet.
Yeah, and who cares what the fans can remember, right?
Right.
Exactly.
As long as they're selling ad space.
Yep. That's in syndication. You can just go back and watch it again.
Yep. And then you can leave out what episodes you don't like and just not watch them.
When I'm retired and I have the time, I mean, there's literally just so many episodes in different shows. I mean, it could take decades to get caught up.
Right. Here's the thing. DC did it with a bunch of no-names, so everybody that's usually in or is cast or starring in these shows are people that are not well-known. They're not big names. Whereas Marvel made the mistake, or a positive thing, where they said, hey, we need the actor with the gravitas, that's going to make this grand. Let's hire them for a film/TV package. But we have to pay them so much that we can't do more than 6 episodes for a season because it's a super expensive thing. So you'll get 1, maybe 2, maybe we'll see 3 seasons, 6 episodes each of something at one point. We're definitely, I think DC's way on the opposite, where most of the time it's like, well, you're getting 23 episodes this season and a lot of it's filler.
Yeah.
Donald,
whether you like it or not, this is what you're getting.
Right.
Donald, you make a good point, because that's why you can start seeing, as Marvel starts casting more TV actors for their shows, like She-Hulk, who gets 9 episodes, and then we get Daredevil later, who has 19 episodes. because they're TV contracts.
Yeah,
And I
18
think that
episodes,
you
yeah.
could definitely see that difference with the like, oh, this TV actor, we can do more episodes because it's TV. So you're definitely right there.
Yeah.
Or the
this-
John Cena deal. They did a good job with John Cena, with the Peacemaker and that Suicide Squad and that transition.
Well,
I'm of the opinion that less is more, and that's certainly the case with these Star Wars series that don't
Oh.
have all that many episodes.
Yeah, right.
There's so much content per episode.
Boba Fett could have been a 3-episode mini-series, and that would have been it. And I'd have been like,
Yeah.
that's great. Good.
Four
You know?
best. Four
I
best.
felt like, what, was 6 or 7 episodes? I thought that was too many. I thought it would just drug on.
The thing
Well, when
about
half the episodes of The Mandalorian, I mean,
Yeah. Exactly.
Star Wars always leaves me wanting more, in part because there's not that many episodes.
Right. With Star
Whereas
Trek,
when you
there's
get
a
into
ton
the
of them.
DC genre, there's so many episodes and
Right.
so many different shows. I'm blown out by the end of the
I'm
week.
tired.
Yeah.
I'm tired.
Yeah, I think the key for DC is to just ignore anything that comes out on the CW, unless it's Stargirl, and watch everything that's not that, because you won't get filler episodes usually. So watching all the
Yeah.
HBO Max exclusive content is probably going to be your jam. In other words,
Speaking of not watching the CW and instead maybe watching the movies, what's the latest status on Ezra Miller? Did he get out of legal trouble? Do you know?
Oh, he's still in legal trouble, but from my understanding, Warner is giving forgiveness for now. He's going through rehabilitation.
right? He was
all that
smart. He was smart, and he said, "Hey, I'm suffering. I need some help." And now he's going to a retreat and stuff like that. So it's smart. It's a smart move for him, for his career, because people are more forgiving.
Doesn't deserve it, but
Right.
you know.
Well, who are
Didn't
we
he
to
punch
judge?
a woman in the face in the store or something? That's what
I
started-
thought it was at a club.
Mul-
He punched her.
Multiple stuff. He's done multiple things, broken in people's plate. He doesn't-
Yeah,
You're-
he
you're
actually.
you'll have to be more specific about the woman he punched in the face.
We were at a bar once, and Kevin was wearing a wig, and he punched him. It was during Halloween time.
Oh, I see.
So he's not against like punching multiple women or people with long hair if you're in his way. So, usually that's why we have Kevin marked safe from Ezra Miller on Facebook.
Yes, of course.
Like during times we know he's going to be in the city and stuff, just so we know he's okay, because he looks out for him, just punches him in the face.
Well,
I don't
worse
get
than
it.
worse, I'll call Ray Fisher in the worst case.
There we go.
You have to give the ladies a fair warning if you're going to a place where Ezra Miller's going to be there.
Right, yeah. Amy says, I have pictures of myself as a kid dressed up as Wonder Woman, and my mom made my magical bracers and crown from the Burger King crown. LOL. Wonder Woman was everything for us little girls. That's
Aw.
super cute, Amy.
Aw.
That's really cool. Ultraman Magnus says, Sandman, Supergirl. Janet says, at Amy, that Wonder Woman show with Linda Carter was so amazing. Evan, hey, thanks for popping in, Evan. Good to see you on here. Excelsior, sir. Ultraman says Falcon and the Winter Soldier, best Marvel show. It definitely had a lot of action to it, so it did keep the story going. I don't always agree with every choice they had for that, but it was definitely a solid show, I feel. Dodgers818, what's up, party people? Kevin, what's popping in?
And Chatsworth.
Let's see. Brian is on. He says Flash was dope in the CW. Yeah, it's pretty solid, dude. Like I don't have any real complaints about it. I will say if I had one thing to say, there's a lot of episodes, so it's a lot to get through. Enrique says, didn't he try to choke Kevin too? Yes, he did. He did, Enrique. Enrique already knew. See, he was typing it in the chat, because we all know poor Kevin gets choked by Ezra every
Miller.
3 weeks.
all right, the biggest problem that I have with the Marvel shows compared to the TV shows for CW is that they're separate entities. So I could go and watch a CW show and not have to worry about then going and watching 20 movies, or vice versa. I don't have to go worry about, did I see this movie? Is it going to make sense to what I'm watching with this Marvel show? I could just go and watch the CW show. And yeah, there might be connected things within that universe, but with the exception of like Doom Patrol or Stargirl, stuff like that, where they're in their own universes. And so for that reason, I really liked the CW shows, because I didn't have to like am I caught up in all the Marvel movies? Do I have to am I going to be lost if I watch this? I feel like people who are watching She-Hulk and haven't seen any Marvel movie in a while, they're going to be totally lost because of everything that's going on in it.
It's true. The only episodes I felt where DC did that and it was confusing was when they had their crossovers. But those were fun. You don't necessarily always have to watch an entire crossover either. I wouldn't even watch the episode of that character and then just watch an episode or two later and be like, oh, everything's fine. Because it always was after those. Everything was always fine.
Crisis of Infinite Earths crossovers in the DC series, I couldn't possibly watch every show. That's when I burned out. I'm like, no, if I have to watch this whole other series in order for this story to have flow and make sense, I can't keep up with it. I was left behind at that point.
Yeah, yeah. I could totally see that. But I also agree with Chris here as far as Marvel. Now, talking about films, yes, right now Marvel is definitely superior. And I think everybody makes fun. They dog on DC because DC, a lot of their films lately haven't been great. But we can't forget also that we got a couple pretty great Superman movies from the 70s and 80s. We got a couple pretty great Batman films from the 80s, the 90s, and some would say even now they're putting out quality Batman product. And they put out at least 8 of the Batman films have been pretty great. So for
money.
Like that, you have to look at that from that standpoint also. When dealing with animation, even now, there's a Harley Quinn series on HBO Max that's phenomenal.
It's fantastic,
just crushing it. A lot of DC just put out a series of shorts, including Blue Beetle.
Oh,
I don't know if people know. I did a web series about the Blue Beetle Ted Cord Returns. You can find it on YouTube.com and Rumblespoon.com.
That Eagle Bell, where is it?
Oh, I could do the. It's like this. That's as close as it gets. Yeah. That's as close as it gets.
Did you finally see it, Don?
Yes, I did. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Did you like
it? It's a lot of fun.
Good.
Hey, they also got the Young Justice.
Yep, it's true. So when it comes to animation, it seems DC reigns. When it comes to television, it seems like it's pretty well balanced, so pretty even. And when it comes to films, I would say Marvel has the edge because they've hit a formula, they've hit a stride, and that's something that DC has struggled to maintain forever.
The MCU?
Yeah.
The MCU is just powerful.
With the exception of I was talking about last week, Captain Marvel, that's a failure, but
right. There's been a few duds in the Marvel universe, of course.
I like the lore in Captain Marvel. The year 1995, I remembered it vividly. I like the music from that year. I like the blockbuster video. There were things about Captain Marvel I really loved.
Yeah.
Especially the cat. It
has to do with the age that I was when all that was going on.
Yeah.
It's nostalgic.
Mm-hmm.
How old were you?
So if nothing else, I like Captain Marvel for the nostalgia.
How old were you in 1995?
I was 70.
Oh, wow.
So we're talking Shazam, right? Basically, what the youngins would know as Shazam now, who is actually the original first ever Captain Marvel, owned by Fawcett, which then got purchased by DC, which then lost the rights to the name Captain Marvel to Marvel, who then purchased the rights to create their own Captain Marvel, to when then DC could no longer call any title Captain Marvel, but they could call him Captain Marvel within the pages, which was very fascinating, this whole lawsuit and rights acquisitions and stuff like that. It's very fascinating.
I thought DC's Captain Marvel movie was way better.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree. 100% agree there. Let's see. Brian says, bring the Beetle suit next visit. We have to troll the office security camera. Yes, we definitely do. I'm down for that, dude. Ultraman Magnus says, who was a better Joker for you guys, Ledger or Phoenix?
Ledger for sure.
Yeah, Ledger here too. What about you two, Frank, Chris?
Can I choose Nicholson?
Sure.
The Joker was who? What were the choices?
Joaquin Phoenix or Heath Ledger?
Oh, Joaquin Phoenix.
Okay.
You got to choose between the two. I got to go a Ledger, but if you're gonna go all time, I got to go Nicholson.
Right. Well, if you're gonna go all time, I'd go Hamill, but you know.
I guess it's a mixed bag. It
Gotta
depends
get some
on
love to Caesar. Gotta get some love to Caesar Romero.
how relatable he was. What
It's
I
true.
liked
He was a lot of fun.
about Joaquin Phoenix was just how depressed he was. I thought that
Oh, I love depression.
depression works for the Joker. It really does.
We all agreed that the worst Joker of all time was the Joker from Suicide Squad, right?
Jared Leto. Yeah, Jared Leto.
Yes,
Good
yes.
Yeah, not a great decision there. Not a great decision. Hector Hernandez says DC crushes the animation. Also, video games lately. Old Marvel games were better than old DC games, though. Yeah, I can get behind that.
About video games, though, I don't know, man. The Guardians of the Galaxy TV show or the Guardians of the Galaxy video game was pretty awesome. So you gotta have that.
Nobody knows what that is, Chris. Nobody knows. Nobody cares.
Guardians of the Galaxy on
No
PS5
one
and
knows
Xbox.
who they are.
Xbox One. Check it out. It's very good. It's a Square
You have
Enix.
PS5?
Are you being paid for this? Are you being paid for this?
Every time somebody says Guardians of the Galaxy, I think of Kurt Russell with that de-aged, odd-looking face.
Mm-hmm.
Just can't get that out of my head.
But yes, Guardians of the Galaxy, it was nominated for Game of the Year. If you like Marvel stuff, and you play video games, check it out. Probably, in my opinion, one of the better than Spider-Man, in my opinion.
Wow. Chris is throwing it out there. Ultraman Magnus, what do you think of that? He just said Spider-Man, it's a great game. I don't know. It could be a fight.
Spider-Man is a great game. I'm just saying that the other one's better.
Oh, okay. All right. That's fair. That's fair. Okay, so we've talked about the television. We've talked about, we kind of danced around the video game section. We've talked about the publishing, the creation of the characters, the breadth of the characters, how they've segued from film into television or animation. We've talked about pretty much most aspects of this. So let me ask you guys this. If you were to go back in time to when DC was starting to form, aka what was it again?
National Periodical
National. Thank you.
Publications.
Aka National, or when Marvel was starting to form, Timely. Which would you like to be a fly on the wall at? Like, which one would you rather go and like hang out and see be like the work done? Kevin?
Another good question. Knowing what I know now, it'd probably be National Periodical Publications. Because unfortunately, Timely only had like 3 characters that are worth anything at the time.
Yeah, true, but you can pop in, let's just say at any point in time. So at any point, if you could go back in time,
then Marvel. If I could pop into Marvel in around 1963,
yeah,
1964, it'd be Marvel.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with you on that, and I don't know anybody else that would argue against it. Frank, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd like to be there when Jack Kirby got started.
Yeah.
See his early work, see him drawing away hour after hour.
Right, Chris.
Characters.
I'd probably go Marvel myself.
Yeah. Okay.
I really have an explanation to it. I just feel like there are certain points in Marvel's like history that would be very interesting to watch and focus on.
Yeah, see all the fights that are going on, the meetings between Stan Lee.
I actually wouldn't mind seeing why and how, like what led to them going bankrupt and stuff like that. Like what went wrong and find out, like see all that happen.
That's a good point. Like when I'm thinking about it, I would, and I think this is why I want to be a fly on the wall, because they flew by the seat of their pants. They were the rebels. Marvel in the 60s were the rebels. They didn't have a team. It was just at one point just Stan and Jack. It was 2 people keeping a company together, watching them struggle and see the rise and then the dip and then the resurrection, of the company over and over again. I think is a more exciting story than what DC has to offer.
Actually, I wouldn't be able to fly at the golf course. You know, the alleged mythical story
Right.
where Stan Lee and gosh, help me out here. Who was the DC publisher at the time? Julius Schwartz.
Yeah.
Julius Schwartz. They're at a golf, and like they were talking about, hey, we redid the Justice League, and maybe you guys should do a team too. And then of course, Fantastic Four came about.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then after that, not long after, came the X-Men, if I recall.
Yep.
So they hit the team, in the Avengers. So they hit the team pretty good moving forward. They're like teams. Let's do the team up. Got to do the team up. No more 2-in-1. That kind of stuff. But yeah. So overall, I think it's all 100% with 100% accuracy, and it's unanimous. It's DC. Marvel officially sucks. DC is the best, greatest company to ever exist in the comic book publishing world, and I'm correct.
No.
I'm right, and that's all there is to it.
Help me, Frank.
No way.
Cheers to DC, the winners of everything.
Now, the only thing DC has better is the food, the Big Belly Burger. All right, Marvel doesn't have anything like that.
Yeah, that's true. They had better characters that like to eat, I think, in the DC universe.
One thing we've got to mention, overall characters, who is the most powerful overall characters, DC characters or Marvel characters?
Oh, DC has the most powerful characters.
They're definitely
Quick
overpowered.
comment. Yeah.
DC characters are definitely overpowered.
Yeah, Doomsday's indestructible, and then he gets more indestructible every time he is somehow killed.
Yeah.
So it's almost he's never really killed.
Oh, geez. What is that? Is that the winner's logo up on the screen? I think it is.
Well,
Huh.
I mean, you have Batman, who pretty much is like the most powerful of all of them, who can basically defeat the entire Justice League. So that's OP right there, man. That's.
Where let me just give the applause to DC. To DC for winning.
Come on, you can't do that. You
Congrats.
can't do that, Donald.
Congrats to DC.
If it helps, I vote Marvel too. So we'd be 3-1 to DC.
No, sorry. Nope. We've broke it down scientifically. I've tallied the numbers, and DC has more positives. We went through this all together. In fact, I'm going to plead each and every one of you, Chris, Frank, Kevin, to replay this entire podcast because I've manipulated you the whole entire time. It was me.
Not me.
It was me. I pulled at every one of your heartstrings, mentioning certain characters, weaving in storylines, things to get you to side with me, to go, oh, that's right, they did do better in this, they did do better in that. Slowly building up the greatest company's status versus the other little Marvel over here. And then eventually showing the world that DC Comics is the greatest company of all time. It's true. Play it back. You'll see how clever I was. Yep, I usually suspected the shit out of you guys.
I still say Dark Horse.
All right, so not DC. Everybody says Marvel except for me. So we'll say Marvel. Even though we tally these numbers, it's gonna show it was DC. But apparently, at the end, everybody switched to become betrayers of all of us in the chat and on live. It's just
Donald,
Stan Lee was slapping you in the face. Stan Lee was slapping you in the face, right?
Your manipulation kind of worked opposite because I was leaning towards DC at the beginning, and through all this, you've convinced me Marvel was better.
To quote Kevin, DC has the presence. Let me just like that comment. Yep. Boom. Let me just drop this mic here. Hang on. No, I'm not going to drop it.
You sure you want to do that? Yeah.
These things cost too much. I'm not stupid.
Yeah, but also, what's the other comment I just made? Marvel has the Beyonder.
Yeah, my mom says DC all the way, son. So there you go.
Well, of course, you Venmo your mom money.
No, I don't.
So it's okay.
No, I don't. Enrique says DC. And then Janet says, I just want all the comics. And that's the whole point, I think, of this, is just to to not just say one is particularly better than the other, although it's clearly DC, but to mention that the diversity of the publishing behind these characters and the creation of these companies is important. Whether there's a replication of certain characters, that just means that character's popular, and they want to benefit from that character by creating a new character very similar. Happens all the time. Same thing with music. When certain types of music are popular, you're going to get more of that. We have the Beatles, and then we follow that up with the Monkees. Obviously, the Monkees is a better, more quality band than the Beatles. But that's a whole nother podcast story. Chris is shaking his head. I think he's got a headache or something. I don't know.
You really want me to quit this show, don't you?
But anyway, you see what I'm saying here. We can all agree that there are great stories within almost every single publishing company there is when it comes to comic books. That's the great thing about comic books. It's diversity. It's creativity. It's the narrative. It's the characterization. It's the art. The element, the name, the title that grabs you from the very beginning. That cover on the title, right under it, where it's got that picture and that dude's coming at you. That kind of thing. Just maybe there's a funny quote on it, or it's a cute little rabbit, with bloody mouth or something. There's something that pulls you in, that draws you to that book, and I think it's important. And that's why we love comic books. There's always something for everybody, it feels. So, anybody have anything else they want to mention before we wrap this up?
I will like to say that I'm glad I stuck to my choice of reading Ninja Turtles over both of the other two.
Wow.
Okay.
There's a lot of
well, you know what? You saved yourself a lot of money. That's the good news, Chris.
Right, but you're also poor because you don't have comic books.
Ooh. That's nice.
Anybody that has comic books is a rich man in my book.
I have books, first of all. And second of all,
Comic
I
books?
have a bigger... Yes, and second of all, I have a bigger heart than you.
Oh,
Ooh. Man,
whatever.
Man, shots fired.
It's only because you
So
eat
in
more
that
cheese.
case, I am richer than you because my heart is wholer.
I think the Grinch can talk about that.
Plus, Professor Turner understands Shakespeare better than you ever will.
That I won't argue. I'm sure he does understand Shakespeare better than I ever will, or care to. I appreciate.
No, look, I have an
obsessed.
explanation to what I said. It's not. I'm not just saying, oh well, Marvel and DC are terrible. What I'm going with is what we said about DC and Marvel about rich characters and rich all this stuff. I like the cool thing I really like about what I went with as a kid was I really liked the history, why it became what it did, and that it does have rich characters, it does have rich villains, and it kind of has all the good things we talked about from DC and Marvel, in my opinion. And so I just I feel like it's a good choice, and I don't have to kind of choose. I don't have to choose Marvel or DC because I have this other entity here that's just what I enjoy.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, to each his own, and there's always a little bit for everybody, so that's a good thing, never a bad thing. Again, I want to thank our sponsor, Splattered Frog, as well as Half's Hot Sauce. I want to thank everybody for listening to us, giving us a watch. Frank, thank you for being a guest. I really appreciate you being on. And,
Yeah, thank you.
Kevin, any last words before you're killed?
Well, I'd just like to thank everyone for joining us. Please subscribe. Please leave a like in the comments section so the algorithms can be manipulated in our favor.
Yes, in our favor. May the odds ever be in our favor, and your favor as well.
Nope.
So thank you all for tuning in, and if we don't see you out and about anytime soon, perhaps we'll see you
At the heroic, fabulous, powerful, but always marvelous comic book shop.
All right, folks. I'm going to Big Belly Burger.